Tonight, Finance Minister in rigorous defense of the controversial Japa royalties deal, taking on his critics.
We are really excited about the listing of Japa in London by the end of the year. It creates the first royalty company of that nature in Africa. It is really sad that for a country that has been mining gold since the 15th century with the Portuguese, we still don't have any internationally listed company.
We are going to take you live to a press conference which is currently still underway at the Finance Ministry, being addressed by both the Finance Minister, his deputy, and the Information Minister. They're taking some real critical questions from a host of journalists. Stay with us. And top story, as always, brought to you by Gassim Cement, the Nation Building, Vodafone. The future is exciting already. In the last few minutes, the Finance Minister and a host of other government officials have been addressing the press, hearing for the first time from the Finance Minister, taking on the criticism against the controversial Japa royalties deal. He's been defending the deal as the best for this country to maximize the benefit from mineral royalties that he says has over the years not necessarily benefited us, and we've been exploited, he says, by foreign companies who come to Ghana and leverage our mineral resources and raise capital upfront on international market. He questions why Ghana cannot do same. He's been asked several questions about politically exposed persons, including people deemed to be key relatives associated to him, including the Gabi Asariocho-Dako, and of course the son of Osafo Mafu. He's had to confront these questions at this particular press conference. I'll bring you a quick recap of some of the essential ones short, but I want to take you live there right now because Mr. Ken Oforiatta is speaking to some of the key issues right now.
As certain leases, come to the end of the concession, we also would have had resources buying other entities around Africa or wherever we want to go. So it's really quite expensive. And Charles, if you can take that out.
Sure. Yes, a lot of when you get a concession from the Minerals Commission. When you get a concession, you go out and do your exploration, you discover gold, you then do your evaluation, and then you confirm your reserves. And let's say you find 200,000 ounces of reserves, and you mine 100,000 a year or 50,000 a year. That means your lease will end in 4 years or 5 years. I think the average lives of our leases are around 10, 11, 12 years. So essentially that is what it is today. But this company, as the minister said, is in the business of procuring new royalty flows. So the understanding is that there's a company that will be living to perpetuity, but some leases are expiring, some new ones are coming in, and so on, and it's ongoing. So really, just look at it as a portfolio of royalties that keeps changing over time as some fall off and some come on. Simple as that. Yeah. With regards to what was the other thing? That Mensah answered it. So and then there was a bit about the companies. We have 16 royalty flows that are being assigned to Japa. Of those 16, 12 are producing, and there are 4 that are in development stage. So these are the typical ones that, as I said, they need money to complete the development and start producing. Those 4 are Nandini, which is owned by Cardinal Resources, is up in the northern part of Ghana. Very, very positive find. There's the Wild Gold project, which is owned by Azuma Resources. There's the Bibiani one, which is owned by Resolute Mining. And there's the Enchi project, which is owned by Pinecrest Resources. So those are the 4 which would start producing soon, but are now at the development stage.
I think what I think Charles showed it on the screen is that even the 16 do not give us majority of royalties that the country earns. It's really important to realize that it's not all of the royalties that the country earns that are going into this new structure. It's important to know that. And so one should not be in haste to prejudge this. Thank you. You said the board's investment in the prospectus.
Yes, the board, and that's another thing. We have to be quite sensitive because the listing rules are quite stringent. So we're actually in a quiet period. So there's a lot that we can't really talk about. And until the prospectus has been submitted to the regulators, both here in London, and approved, we can't really discuss the board members, so to speak. There are some statutory positions on the board which are filled by the Mining Income Investment Fund members. I think the CEO and one board member have an automatic seat on the EJAPA board. So whoever is the CEO of the Mining Income Investment Fund is a board member, and other board member is nominated. And so those are government's representation on the board. Right. And other than that, the details will all be spelled out in the prospectus. As soon as the prospectus is approved by the regulators both here in the UK, it will be available to all investment banks that will be marketing the deal. They will share it to all prospective buyers in Ghana. You all get it, just like with the MTN transaction and so forth and so on. So, and everything will be in there, your board members, the total amount of transaction fees that we are paying to all the advisors, and the prospective mines, the list of the 16 mines that we're looking at, and everything. So that will be there. Also, with regards to the presentation I just gave, I've just been passed a note that according to the listing rules, I cannot give it to you. Maybe what we'll try and do is see if we can put together a more sanitized version that is not the lawyers can sign off of and say, as of now, it is within the disclosure rules to be able to give you that, and we'll pass that over if that's okay with you.
Prime Minister, we want to thank you for your time, yourself and your deputy for giving us.
So you've just been listening there to a live press conference from the Finance Ministry tonight, addressed by the Finance Minister himself, Ken Ofori-Atta, and his deputy, Mr. Charles Dubois-Hing, and of course the Information Minister, Kojo Oponkroma, on the controversial EJAPA royalties controversy. There are a few important things that had come up that we want to break down for you. My colleague, Joseph Opoku-Gakpo, is on the line with me. He's been asking his own questions on this, and I want to bring him in to give us a bit more clarity on some of the important issues that had come up and had been addressed by the Finance Minister. Joseph, thank you for connecting. I can see from my screens that the Finance Minister is making his way out. One of the most important things that had come up is the question about the politically exposed persons, including the Finance Minister's own, of course, relative, Mr. Agabi Asaro-Tridako, and of course the Senior Minister's son as well. You actually asked that question to him. Explain to me what they are. Did you get an answer to that?
From him specifically, from the Finance Minister specifically, no. I've seen him walk out of the corridors. I will try and see if I can get a comment from him personally on that. It was just his deputy Charles Dubois-Hing who eventually responded to the question and insisted that a very competitive process was used in actually identifying the third individual who eventually became the CEO and all that. Mr. Ofori-Atta, I would have loved to hear your personal comment on my question about conflict of interest with regards to the African Legal Associates owned by Gambia Tradeko. Aren't you worried about the sort of possible conflict of interest coming up?
Well, that's a difficult one. The President cousin is a Minister for Finance. He thinks that's a terrible conflict of interest. I'm asking a question. Obviously, and so obviously we look at competence first and then move on. And I think the right. It's the same thing about appointing a finance minister who has the competence to do all we are doing. And we think we've done a great job in selecting the best person for the assignment at this time.
The PSSC, you'll not be able to raise the necessary topics for the decision, but not directed very much.
I think we've been here since we came into government, in which the opposition rubbishes anything we go, and we go to the market and come back with them. It's because there's a background, there's a trust, there's a belief, there's a competence, and we've done it well. So that's not my worry.
Could you consult the local communities themselves standing up to this?
Which local communities?
The communities where they,
yeah, but we did not. I see, but we did not take the development, the 20% development from them. That has never changed. It is a government portion that we are using. So it's not going to negatively impact, and I think you saw that quite clearly.
Kind of is the Minister of Finance, Evans, with those quick comments, even as they rounded up the media briefing here in Parliament a while ago. Well, here are the Finance Minister, I should say.
Yeah, and Joseph, a quick one. At the beginning, when you asked him directly the question about the questions about politically exposed persons, Gabi and others, his reaction, he posed a question to, can you clarify? It was difficult to hear exactly what he said at the beginning.
So his point was that we haven't seen the situation of the president going ahead to appoint his cousin to the position of Minister of Finance Minister. So his question, in response to my question, was, do you consider that a case of conflict of interest? And that, well, for him, no, and that the focus is actually on competence. And he made the point that that is actually what is unfolding in the case of Yaw Safumafu, his son, Kofi Safumafu, being a consultant and most likely the next CEO as far as the Parliamentary Royalties Limited is concerned. In fact, the Deputy Minister for Finance, Charles Boahene, responded to that question extensively earlier without the Finance Minister himself responding. And Mr. Boahene indicated that as far as the position of CEO is concerned, it was actually advertised. They had more than 30 applications being shortlisted for the position. There were only about 6 of them who were Ghanaians. They were very much interested in ensuring that the position actually goes to a Ghanaian. And so they advertised for the position of CEO, the position of Chief Financial Officer, and more than 30 people actually applied. And when they did the eventual shortlisting, the person who came tops is actually Kofi Safumafu. And the decision was taken that in the interim, he will serve as a consultant for the project until the necessary listing is actually done, after which if they are convinced he is very much competent to take up the position, then he will take on as CEO. But the Deputy Minister of Finance insisted that a very competitive process actually led Kofi Safumafu taking up the position. Apart from that,
and I want to share that explanation with our audience tonight on why and how they settled on the senior minister's son, of course, to be a key member of this vehicle going forward. This is the Deputy Finance Minister.
And also to do with my good friend Kofi Safumafu and the selection process, we engaged as part of, when we started this in 2018, as part of the whole process, we also engaged a headhunting firm, and the firm is called Conferry, Kornferry. They're based out of California. They're a global headhunting firm, and we asked them to help us identify and shortlist a candidate for the CEO position, for the CFO position for Ijapa, and also for the board. And they scoured the whole group. We said our preference for the Ghanaian, for the CEO position, was that it should be a Ghanaian, and ideally also for the chairman of the board. But we also wanted very strong operators who were experienced and had a background in mining.
I think over 30 or so candidates that were eventually shortlisted that were brought to us. Of that, 6 were Ghanaian, and Kofi happened to be one of the 6. He also happened to be working by then with Smith. So we then said, okay, he was a good prospect, but until such time as we got to the listing stage, we would engage him as a consultant, especially then be able to exactly see if he would bring the right value to the table and was capable enough to do the job. His background was a right fit. He happened to have been in the asset management business, being a equity research analyst, covering gold and mining and energy stocks. So in London, and worked for some of the biggest asset management firms or investment management firms that we know of. And that position, not only do you have the technical knowledge of mining, but you also have the financial knowledge. And most importantly, because he interacted with investors on a daily basis, he had a good appreciation for what investors would be looking for in purchasing an asset such as this. And going forward, in managing a company, you would have a nose for the right type of investments to make and the conditions around which to make them, which it is a very key part of this whole story, because once you're going to market, the investors are going to look at your management team and need to be convinced that this is a team that knows what they are doing, will be able to identify the right assets and the mining companies to back forward, because that's where the value is going to accrue and the capital is going to appreciate. So that was the reason. It was just that. It just happened to be a coincidence that he happens to be somebody we know and happens to be a relative of somebody who's already in the government. I happen to also know him because we went to the same school. He was a year ahead of me in school. So, I mean, I don't think that was also a coincidence. It could have been anybody else. So, it was just about finding the right person for the job. But there were other people, Ghanaians, but most of them were actually just miners. They had worked in a mine and had, mining engineers, had a lot of mining experience, but had very little finance experience, very little equity experience, very little private equity and investment experience. So that didn't work too well.
So that is the Deputy Finance Minister on the question of the involvement of the Senior Minister's son. And here on Top Story, you've heard my colleague Joseph Gapo chase down the Finance Minister and put the question directly to him about the involvement of his relative Gabi Asare-Chudako in the deal as part of the Africa Legal Associates, where of course he's a partner. He's made the point tonight on Top Story, if you missed it a few minutes back, that of course he doesn't see the issue of conflict there because they went for competence. He asked the question, well, the president appointed myself, Kenneth Oyata, who we know is another close relative of the president, as the finance minister. Would you consider that a conflict of interest as well? And he says that it's a matter of competence, and they've made the right decision in bringing Africa Legal Associates on board. Now, the Deputy Finance Minister also then provides additional clarity on why the Africa Legal Associates, in which Gabi is a key partner, were selected as part of the transaction advisors.
And the gentleman in question that was referred to happens to be a partner in ALA, but there are several other partners, and it's a partnership. These law firms are set up as partnerships, and in fact, the partner we're working with on this is another partner altogether, another gentleman in question. So really, we did not see any conflicts there at all. And to be honest, when you are working on such a transaction and you want to be listed on the London Stock Exchange, they're very particular and extremely diligent in their due diligence, even to the extent of looking at all your advisors, transaction advisors, to ensure that they're comfortable with them and are clear that there are no conflicts whatsoever there as well.
I've just been joined on the telephone line by minority, of course, former Deputy Energy Minister under the John Mahama administration, Mr. John Junapo, joins me on the telephone line right now. Before I bring him, though, Joseph is still with me on the line. Joseph, the Finance Minister has also been responding to the minorities' concerns and criticism of this particular deal, and he's been accusing them of actually being part of the process that led to the birth of this deal.
Precisely. So, to attempt paraphrasing him, he said the opposition was part of the negotiation. According to Kenneth Fayasa, members on the minority side were part of committee meetings that eventually looked at whether it's the Mineral Income Investment Fund Act or even some of these conversations around Japan. And for him, all that he can see about how come they are now raising red flags is because it's just about the 102 days to elections. Otherwise, for him, he doesn't see why they would want to, as he said, beat a retreat after they virtually start all of these conversations and negotiating around this Japan mineral royalty agreement and even the Mineral Income Investment Fund.
Joseph, thank you very much. There's a lot to get through, but of course, you want to stay with us for news tonight. Let me bring in Mr. Junapo on this. Mr. Junapo, let's start with the last bit that we heard from Joseph, who just is still at the press conference that is finished. The Finance Minister's reaction is that you were all part of the crafting of the Minerals Investment Fund Act, which specifies that the fund can go this route in getting a special purpose vehicle, etc., which we know now had meant that Ijapa Royalties becomes that company and, of course, its Ghanaian partners. What's your reaction to this?
So the first thing you do is to look at the handout and listen to the comments of the minority side. The red flags we raised. And then two, I think that the Minister of Information must be honest. You present 5 agreements within a day. You present 5 agreements within 1 day, and you expect all of us to peruse all these 5 agreements and pass them within that same day. The House, we suspended our usual 48 hours of consideration. And so if the Minister of Information says that it did not go through under a certificate of urgency, then why did we suspend the 48-hour rule to take it within 24 hours? So we ought to be honest. But you see, there are key issues that ought to be dealt with. The government of Ghana, led by no less a person than the Finance Minister himself, he holds a press conference and announced to the whole world that in Ghana, when you set up an entity here, you will pay corporate tax. So it is better for the government of Ghana to rather go and establish a company in Jersey Island. What policy contradiction is this? A company owned by government. You pay corporate tax when you make profit. And so when this company is registered and listed in Ghana, if it makes profit, it will pay tax to the government of Ghana. The government of Ghana says, no, that is not proper. So we want to go and list in somebody else's country and register the company there so that we do not pay taxes to the government of Ghana. Is this patriotism? Is this a rational thing to do? Is this reasonable? That the very government that is preaching and saying that it wants taxes to develop this state, it is coming out with a lot of legislation to win and making more revenue, has decided that because it will pay tax, a company owned by this government, it will pay tax to this government, it wants to rather go to another company. Meanwhile, at the press conference, he said that Talo has listed in Ghana. He mentioned companies. Anglo Gold has listed in Ghana. And yet the government itself finds it unreasonable to list in Ghana. Let's put that aside. The Ejapa itself, that company, they make it look as if when you list on the London Stock Exchange, that is the activity. You only list on the stock exchange because you want to raise some revenues. Listing on the stock exchange is not your core business. What is the core business of Ejapa Royalties? Are they going to mine for gold? Are they going to buy gold? Are they going to sell gold? Don't forget, it's an SPV. And an SPV is usually set up to do a specific job. After that job, the SPV is done. And so there is a lot of opacity and misinformation on the part of government.
I thought you said the Japan would manage the royalties.
To do what?
and invest it they've explained today that they will invest it in health, in infrastructure, invest it in the mining sector again to build some schools. I had the deputy finance minister.
So if you build schools, if you build health infrastructure, how do you make profit to pay shareholders? You see the deception? Schools, social intervention like schools, like hospitals. Where do you make that profit to declare dividend? And why would investors around the world invest in an SPV whose job would be to do what government of Ghana does in terms of building schools? He stated at a press conference that these 12 mining companies brings in about 150 million. If you get $150 million per annum and you want to build schools, you want to build hospitals, wouldn't you better use the money? Why do you want to send the money abroad to a company established in a tax haven, and then say that that company will then bring the money back to build hospitals and schools and expect to make profit from hospitals and schools in Ghana and then go back there and pay shareholders? What kind of a nonsense story is this? Look, my brother, we are all Ghanaians and we all want the betterment of this country. This ministry under this government is being extremely deceptive. They don't want to tell you the truth, that they are borrowing money and they will service that debt with our mineral royalties. That is what they are doing. But you see, they think that they are so clever that they can dribble all of us. Okay, if they will be ready, if they will be building schools, go and check their incorporation. Go and check their incorporation. Is that their mandate to build hospitals? Is that the mandate of the Japan?
If you look at it, the mineral income investment fund, it's the entity established by law. So they, of course, will take, government owns, remember, 51% of this. And so government takes back what it gets and then does the investment with it from our end.
Go and check the relationship agreement. We are giving them so much indemnity. In fact, there's even an indemnity agreement. We are even confirming that we'll deal with a Japan at arm's length, and that when we give them the money, they will decide what to use the 75.6% of our royalties for. So this issue of schools, this issue of whatever, it's a complete lie. Look, when you establish a company and you value it at 1 billion, our shareholders not supposed to pay the equity. So if government pays its equity and all the other parties pay their equity share of 1 billion, why don't you use that 1 billion for trading? Why do you want to come and take our mineral royalties and go and give it to that company? In any case, what does government do? Government raises revenue and invests in the people. You have gotten the revenue, over $100 million. You will use it, and you claim that you will go and give it to a certain company for that company to trade. And in trading, inherent in trading and business is the element of risk. And so this issue of profit, where are the cash flows? Give us the cash flows and let us do the NPVs and the IRRs and determine whether it is worth it or not. They haven't given you any cash flows. All they say is that shares will go up. You want the money today to invest in schools. You decide that you won't do that. You will go and give it to an SPV to go and do some trading in an anonymous system, and then when they make profit and they declare dividend, then they come and give you government a dividend to go and do so-called infrastructure. This is nothing but a cock and bull story.
Let me get
very sad. I feel very, very sad.
Let me get some clarity on this. I've been reading the Mineral Income Investment Fund Act as amended 2018 recently, and I see that in there it actually states that the fund can set up a special purpose vehicle and of course get investment, etc. into it, etc. I wonder, which is exactly what government says you're doing now. I mean, what level of participation did you see this though during the passage, the process that leads to that led to the passage of the act?
Fantastic, Evans. We discussed this at committee level when we're passing that law. MIF can set up an SPV and say that we're giving 20% to the SPV. Go and invest in Anglo Group. Partner with Newmont in Ghana. Or list on the Ghana Stock Exchange and raise some more revenues. But the 20% will seed it so that you use it to service the facility. So that we are clear in our mind that you have borrowed money, we are using maybe 10 or 20% for that purpose, and it will pay the money either through amortization or whatever system. That makes a lot of sense. But this opacity, and they think they are clever. Who are you deceiving?
Who are you deceiving? The 15 CSOs, do you think that they are political? They have this country at heart. They should stop what they are doing and credit all of us with some modicum of intelligence. Why? I mean, how? Look, it's sad. It's not sad, but it's sad. It's sad.
Stay with me, Mr. Junappo, because I've just been joined by one of the CSOs you just mentioned, Africa Center for Energy Policy. Head joins me on the telephone line right now, Mr. Benjamin Boakye. Mr. Ben Boakye, I know you've also been watching the proceedings from this press conference. You're part of the 16 CSOs. Are you satisfied with the explanations you got tonight?
Evans, thanks for having me. I think it's a good progress that you would have, the finance minister come out to speak, to the issues and concerns that are being raised. But significant for me is that, the critical questions remain outstanding and they haven't been answered. For our understanding of how the sector works, our understanding of how countries get royalty and why we get royalty.
What are these questions for you that still remain outstanding after today?
So, number one, we are giving tax concession to an investor, who is coming to invest in our royalty. So if you waive taxes for Japan, what you have said is that along the value chain, forget about the benefits that Ghana will get. Ghana cannot tax itself, we agree. But the 49% shareholders will not pay tax. And they will be the only investors in the value chain who will not pay tax. If Anglo Gold invests in Ghana, they invested, the concession we gave them was that if you invest $500 million, you are given a rebate of 2.5% tax. So instead of 35%, you pay 32.5%. That is the rebate we gave them. But you are giving another investor a zero rating. So they can benefit from the production of the gold without paying tax. And I think it's extremely unfair to the investment climate. It's extremely unfair to the businesses who are here doing the critical work of actually extracting the resources. And I also heard another unfair comment, where we assume that we have mined for several years and we have gotten nothing. I think the narrative has changed significantly. We have to appreciate that. If you look at last year, the companies paid corporate income tax of 2.2 billion Ghana cedis, royalty of 1 billion. So that's 3.2 billion. At least they are doing something. You have the responsibility of managing these resources and ensure that the communities where the resources are extracted see the benefit. If you go to Obuasi, you don't see results, you don't see benefits. If you go to Takwa, you don't see results, you don't see benefits. Government has a role, a shared responsibility in that underdevelopment that has happened. Then another question that was not answered, really, is that why is Ghana, as a sovereign, in the midst of global conversation to ensure that tax havens are hacked down, being a patron, and not just a patron, but we are the one who have set it up. We have gone to register a company in a tax haven and seeking investors into it. I mean, check the internet. Denmark in COVID says they are not paying, they are not giving any company that is incorporated in a tax haven incentives. France says the same. Many countries are hacking down. UK is even trying to regulate just where we are going to register our company. And we say this is a bad precedent for Ghana to do, and we don't have to get into it. Another thing that needs significant clarity is that, these royalty companies, they exist, and they are private arrangements, private sector equity firms that are doing this royalty arrangement. And we have to break it down for Ghanaians and people to understand. So for a company like Newmont or Anglo Gold that wants investment into a mine, instead of going to the market to go and borrow, they go to a private equity firm that says that, okay, we don't want you to go to bank, but we want to give you money. When you start producing and you are paid royalty to the state, we want 10 bars of gold, 100 bars of gold, or $100 million.
every year. And that is our share from your proceeds. So the companies are comfortable taking that royalty or that arrangement and giving the royalty to them instead of going to the bank to go and borrow. Okay? It is different from a country's royalty, and that is quite significant.
And that came up today too. The finance minister's argument is that if the private companies can do that and leverage our mineral resources for upfront cash, why can't the country Ghana do same?
You see, the risk levels are different. So regardless of whether you are a royalty company hiding somewhere and investing in Anglo Gold or Newmont, if Newmont goes bankrupt, you've lost your money. Okay? If Ghana gets royalty, that royalty, if we don't take it, if Anglo Gold goes bankrupt and we don't get royalty from them, our resources are on the ground. And that is the essence of having a state taking royalty. We take it because we own the resources and not because we have put our money in there. So why would you take that money that you are guaranteed at all costs and say that you want to go and risk it into a mine or in a stock exchange going to other business as defined in the law? Because a Japan can decide to do any business with our royalty. We are assuming today that a Japan will be investing in mining companies. The company can change course once shareholders change. You understand? So these are important conversations that we need to have as a country. And that is why I think that for a moment, we should forget about opposition. That was part of the process, as they say, and engage academia, engage civil society, engage companies, engage stakeholders, AGI, and let us have a national conversation as to whether we want to do this kind of transaction with our royalty.
Well, the finance minister today for the first time clarified that they expect Japan to list and begin the process of floating its shares by the end of the year. Let me bring in Mr. Jinapo back into the conversation. Mr. Jinapo, the other key controversial point that I know the minority had raised was also addressed today is about the involvement of some politically exposed individuals, particularly Mr. Gabriel Sorochudako's law firm and the senior minister's son, Mr. Kofi Osafo-Maafo. The finance minister, just before you join us, my colleague Joseph Opoku-Gapo directly chased him down and asked him the question of the alleged conflict involving his relative. He says they went for competence. They went for people who are actually qualified to do the job. The deputy explains quite in detail that there was a competitive process that led to the selection of Kofi Osafo-Maafo. Those are the explanations coming from the minister and the deputy tonight. Does it address the concerns you had?
You hosted the Minister of Information, and you did a fantastic job as usual. You asked him this direct question. His answer on that day was that he's qualified. That's why they went for him. Today, the deputy minister says that there was some competitive process. So let them tell us, when was it advertised in the dailies? How was it advertised? At least we'll see the evidence in the dailies. And we all know that when it comes to advertisement, the Daily Graphic, which is the nation's #1 media house, print media that circulates, you would advertise there. So let's ask for that evidence. And I've told you, I've done my checks. Let them tell us how the advertisement was done. And I think that you, the media house, and I do know that you do a very good job, kindly follow up on that. Let them tell us how it was competitively advertised. Who did it? Was it the public office that did it? Let us check all that. This is nothing but a ruse. And I'm telling you, when you check it, you confirm my stand. So, secondly,
go on.
He says that Gabi's firm is a competent firm. So was that also appointed through competitive bidding? How many legal companies in Ghana applied? And what was the criteria? When was it advertised? It's just funny. It's funny.
The big question now is what happens now. The government is very clear. I mean, the finance minister is categorical tonight that the Japan will list by before the year ends.
Yeah, the big question is simple: that they should halt the process and engage further. These CSOs are CSOs that want the betterment of this country. And Ben has just given you figures that we get from the mining sector. These are not small figures. And so when people are raising alarm bells What a listening government does is that it pauses and engages further, clarify issues, take suggestions, so that together we can build this country. We on the minority side, we are clear in our mind that this deal is a very, very bad deal. And when President Mahama assumes office, we shall review it with the ultimate aim of terminating it and returning these resources to the state. It belongs to the people of Ghana and not an SPV that has been established in a tax haven in JC Island.
On that last point you made, the finance minister had a reaction to yourself and the former President John Mahama. Listen to him.
The challenge for me is, the opposition has been aware of this transaction since 2018 and have been part of the discussions, negotiations, etc. I can only hazard that because it's close to elections, they feel that there's a political advantage of some sort. But it's not hasty, it's not new. And I saw some of them in the committee discussions, so obviously in which they were supportive of all of that. So there must be a new element, and the only element I can see is 102 days away, December 6th. But they are doing their job as opposition. So.
Mr. Jinapo, it's been said by the Information Minister and other government officials that at this point when government is going to the international market to look for resources to develop Ghana, to be threatening that you would not respect the deal, you would overturn it, they say it's unpatriotic.
Because we mean well for this country. And what the Finance Minister is saying is not true. Go and read the committee reports. It's a majority decision. Most of our committee reports are done on unanimous basis to build consensus. And if you read the committee report, the minority insisted that this deal is not a good deal. On the floor of Parliament, we made our point clear, loud, and walked out of the House in protest. So what the Finance Ministry and the Ministry of Information is putting out is inaccurate.
But you backed the amendment to the Act which gave birth to this deal.
The amendment itself hasn't even been ratified by the President.
In fact, yesterday, 2 days ago, that's true. In fact, 2 days ago when I asked the Deputy, the answer he gave was he doesn't know yet if the President has assented to it or not. I mean, he does.
So simple, my brother, fellow Ghanaians, if the law hasn't been assented to, if there is no law in existence, why do you want Parliament to ratify an agreement on nothing? It's like putting something on nothing. There is no law. The President hasn't signed the law. And yet you expect members of Parliament to approve a deal that is premised on a law that is non-existent. Look, my final words are simple. The NDC, President Mahama and the minority, we are patriots. We believe in safeguarding the interests of this country. If the Finance Minister will abandon this treacherous path that he is embarking on and join us, it will be better for us all. Thank you very much.
That is Mr. Jinapo there. So have with me Mr. Benjamin Boakye. Mr. Boakye, that last point about the President's signing that amendments that, of course, had been done that gave birth to this. You were on the show with me on PMX when I asked the question to the Deputy Finance Minister about whether the President had signed that particular act. Of course, that then will make it law. And he says he cannot tell. We still don't have clarity on that yet. But how significant is that in the grand scheme of things, whether the President has signed it?
I think we wouldn't know until it's gazetted, unless government tells you that it's been signed. We will have to wait for the Gazette to be able to know whether it has been signed or not. But it'd be good for government to respond directly to it. But I think essentially the point is that a broader conversation is needed. Let's deviate from, the point we had from your show and even now, that if people want education, we will educate them, and not necessarily to listen to the key issues and answer the questions that, are being posed. I think that is where we have to revert to be able to address the concerns and keep, Ghana as a royal, that is due royalties. We can't share that part of our component. There are ways to optimize the industry, and there are experienced people to help Ghana optimize revenues from the sector, by ensuring that we have institutions that are strong to ensure that our ultimate interest in the production of gold will increase.
I mean, for example, if you assume that you're not getting enough taxes, who are the tax experts to help you do that? To engage the companies to ensure that you can improve on your tax collection. And I think these are issues that a country should concern itself with, not be interested in playing in the business directly. And I think this is where the conversation should really come to.
I'm grateful, Mr. Benjamin Boakye, for your time here on Newsnight. Isn't it amazing when your network cares about you so much so that they do amazing things for you? You guessed it. I'm talking about the Vodafone Cash dropping all charges when you send money to all networks. Yes, you heard it right. It costs nothing, absolutely nothing, when you send money via Vodafone Cash to all networks. Just send any amount, as many times as you want, to any network, to pay zero charges on the money sent. So go ahead, make payments, show your love, make contributions, send money all you want via Vodafone Cash to all networks for free. Dial *110# to send cash for free. Ready. Still ahead on Newsnight.
President Akufo-Addo commits to set up a committee to investigate alleged military brutalities in the Volta region, but insists the deployment was not meant to target the region, but rather to secure the country's borders.
The Volta region